Hello and welcome to today's European SharePoint Office 365 and Azure Community webinar. My name is Shane and I'm delighted to be joined by Tracy van der Schef, MVP The Good Stuff Limited, South Africa, who will be talking to you today about the impact of digital literacy on Office 365 user adoption. Remember to join in the conversation about today's webinar on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC19. Don't forget to check out the Resource Center. This is packed with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. Simply visit sharepointeurope.com and click the content link at the top of the page. Check out our super early bird offer for ESPC 19. Save €350 per ticket. Offer ends on May 10th. Type any questions you have for Tracy in the questions window. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center where you will be notified by email when it is available. And now I'm going to pass you over to our webinar presenter, Tracy van der Schef. Hello, Tracy. Can you hear me? Tracy, you might just have your side muted as well. I'm just trying to unmute you there. Tracy, can you hear me? Yes.
Hello, I can. Thank you so much, Shane. And just to confirm, you can see my screen?
I can indeed. Take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Shane. And thanks so much for everyone that's joined us. I have a small disclaimer before I start. And I said to Shane that I'll have to do this. I've traveled overseas for the last couple of weeks, and I came down with very bad bronchitis. So at the moment, I'm on nebulizers and asthma pumps and things. So if at any point during the webinar, I do mute myself just for a couple of seconds, please just hold on a moment. I think Shane might just jump in. If you have any questions, pop them in there. I'll definitely be back soon as possible. Shane definitely offered me a couple of times to get out of the webinar if it really was too bad. And I said that there is no way that I'll disappoint you guys and not go forward with the webinar. So let's hope it all goes without incident. I'm pretty sure it will. I do sound a bit at the moment like something between Bonnie Tyler and something from a horror movie, if some of you still know who Bonnie Tyler is. But I'm very, very happy to join you today. And as mentioned, thanks for the introduction, Shane. My name is Tracy. I'm all the way from South Africa, and I'm unbelievably passionate about Microsoft 365, as well as empowering people, which is my first focus, is really helping people out. And today's webinar, of course, is about digital literacy. And I've spent the last easily 3 to 4 years at conferences. This has been my main topic that I have been discussing. I definitely do technical sessions on Office 365 as well, but I do feel that we need a lot of focus on this topic. I think people are struggling with user adoption, and these days also known as consumption problems, and I think that you'll get a lot out of my session. So I hope that you enjoy it, and let's take a look at what I'd like to cover with you today. So the first topic I am going to take a look at is literacy statistics and the ROI on training. And that's definitely a very difficult thing, I think, to try and work out. So I'll share some tips and tricks with you to help you work those out better. The second one is how Office 365 supports and grows digital literacy skills. Then we'll also take a look at some of the amazing features that's been released in the last couple of years in Office. And what I am going to do is I'm going to leave the demo section until the end of the webinar. So I'll proceed with the slides and finish up with the slides, and then go back and spend the rest of the time while we look at any further questions, etc., to do the demo, because I actually have to swap screens. So the fourth point we'll be taking a look at is how do we keep up to date with all the new features and the releases, which is also quite a difficult thing, I think, to achieve. And then lastly, of course, how does IT and end user and training roles, and how should they change? What is the impact, and how should these change? Just a note as well is that you're more than welcome to ask questions during the webinar. I will try and answer any of these as I can as we proceed. I just want to quickly check up and see that I can see. I just want to expand the screen so that I can see the Q&As as well. So if you can just give me a moment, let me just get hold of that. And we'll look at the Q&As as well. I'll also allow Shane, just in case I don't have my eye on it, to maybe just interject as well and say, Trace, here's a couple of questions. So I'd like this to be interactive. Sorry, Shane, was that you trying to say something there?
No, go ahead. I was just saying, yeah, that's absolutely no problem at all. I'll jump in if I need to.
So please feel free to ask questions. If I see any questions pop up, I'll definitely answer them. Otherwise, we'll go through the list at the end of the webinar, and Shane can assist me with that as well. So first up, something very, very close to my heart is training, of course, and the ROI on training, and then of course the digital literacy statistics. This is research that I started doing in the last couple of years because I realized that I was having problem with training that I was delivering. So I've always, well, not always, but the last couple of years I've been giving SharePoint advanced training, so more on-premises SharePoint. And I realized that I would very often see the same people in my training class, which I honestly didn't understand. And I then started doing research as to why people needed refresher training. Why was it that training didn't stick? And I'm sure that you're experiencing the same in the companies that you work in. So I started doing some serious research on this to see where the problem areas could be. And the first thing that I did, well, not the first thing that I came across, but the most impactful thing that I came across was a survey that was done in 2011, between 2011 and 2015. And it was done over 33 countries, and 215,000 people completed the survey. Now, these are people that were tested that were using computers already, so if I can just get that out of the way. And if you look at those statistics there, even if I think of level 3 strong is what we consider power users. So you can easily say that about 95% of the users doesn't fall into that category. And that also, to make a quick stab at it, we can say that about 70% of our users were not found PC literate. So I've changed this into digital literacy because we need a lot more these days. It's not just about PC literacy anymore. But 70% of the users tested were not PC literate. And I've done this in companies as well that I've worked in the last couple of years. And I can promise you, even though companies tell me that, Trace, we don't have a problem, everyone's PC literate in the company, and when we start doing tests, we see that we have a problem. And I think a big thing there is that we, as humans, we only know what we know. There's no way that you can say whether you're illiterate in something if you don't know what the other actions or activities or attributes are. So just knowing what you know and not knowing what you don't know makes it very difficult, which is why I suggest to companies to make PC or digital literacy part of their compulsory training or induction training when people start. On the next slide, I'm going to just share with you, and you definitely don't have to read through this. And of course, these will all be available afterwards, but I just want to share those categories with you to give you an idea. But as I mentioned, level 3 strong was what we consider power users. And the type of things that were tested was like sending emails and being able to go to the browser and search for something, or the ability to work between multiple windows. So they weren't being tested for being developers or being able to code or to I don't know, do graphic design. These were basic PC literacy skills that were tested. And as mentioned, 70% of the users were found not PC literate. So imagine what an impact that can have on your company. And don't make the mistake by thinking that everyone in your company is PC literate, because I can promise you that they're not. I've done a lot of research on this, and I've shared a lot of articles on this as well. And it's definitely not the case, and it has a huge impact on the adoption that we're having for Office 365. So those are all the things, of course, that's available. And of course, it just gets added every day. Dynamics, of course, isn't necessarily involved in all the packages, but there's a lot of apps and services that are available. And if you had to think that you're getting Office 365 or Microsoft 365 licenses for your users, and they're only 70% or 70% of them are not PC literate, then it means that the Office stack that they're actually using might only be those. So Skype, of course, eventually will be Teams, but maybe they're only using Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Outlook, or a little bit of SharePoint. So imagine the cost impact that has as well, the licensing that you're paying for, and the fact that they're not using all the apps and services that are available to them. But also, your people aren't efficient and effective, which doesn't just cost you money and productivity, but it also makes people miserable. And I can promise you that miserable people cost you the most. Miserable people are not happy in their jobs, and they leave their jobs and they speak to other people and say they're not happy. So they affect and have an impact on other people in the company as well. So definitely when people are not using all the tools that's available to them, and when they are not effective and efficient using those tools, they definitely have a serious impact on the company's bottom line. And of course, on employees being happy, because employees that are enabled and empowered, of course, are happier employees and they can achieve a lot more. So part of that, I then went and I did in the research, I then went and looked, and I'll share some more of this details. Again, please don't worry about reading all of this, but I created an infographic where I went and looked at an average size company. And I said that if I take average salaries and we say that 70% of our people are not literate, and that means that I can train people up and make them more productive. And then also another survey that I've come across, which is also excellent, is that we can gain up to 33 productive minutes a day by after receiving PC literacy training. So that's also just another survey that was done a couple of years ago. I'm quite convinced it's much higher than that. But using that statistics that I got from the web and the details, I then went and checked out to try and figure out what the ROI would be on training, because it's a very difficult thing to, of course, to work out. And companies don't want to pay for training because it's expensive. They don't understand the ROI. And if you then look at that, I don't know who's ever been involved in working out the ROI on projects, but just working on average salaries in a company, you can even easily look at a 700% ROI on training, which is unbelievable. And it's just one of those gifts that keeps on giving as well. I mean, these are just empowering people, because the features and the apps that we use in Office 365 is going to just keep on expanding and get more and more things will be added. So if we don't upskill our workforce as quickly as possible, we'll keep on struggling and it'll just get more and more difficult. So the ROI on training, I can promise you, there's a definitely huge scope for that. And on the next slide, I actually took and I said, if we can even just look at saving 5 minutes a day, so we don't even have to look at the 33 minutes a day. Let's just say we can save people 5 minutes a day. What impact will that have on my employees to try and build up my power users, or the people who will become the citizen developers in your Microsoft 365 environment? So there's some scary numbers there. I've used the South African currency in euros and dollars to give you an idea of what the impact can be on the bottom line if we empower back in our users and if we just get 5 minutes a day back. So imagine if that's 33 minutes a day or an hour a day, if they can use the different apps and services in Microsoft 365. So next up, I'm going to just take a deep breath before I continue and just take a drink of water. So just give me a hold in a moment for me. There we go. I'm still kicking. So part of the research that I've done is that I look at the psychological impact as well on people, and why it is that people do not adopt new technologies, because we've always struggled with this. It's not a new thing. I can promise you that cloud technologies is not where the problem's coming. Users have never really adopted the technology that we've taken into companies, and we've never gotten the full ROI for it. And I fully believe that for us to understand the future of technology or the future of where we want to go, we need to have empathy and we need to have understanding for where we've come from. And I started doing some research into a specific topic, and that's using data. If we look at all the job descriptions in our company and we say, what is it that everyone uses? Then definitely it's data. We all create data. We store data. We want to securely store data. We want to try and find data again. We want to share data. And that means that if we can go and we can change the way that people works with data, we'll have the bigger impact. And that's definitely a good training point as well. So I went and worked out the evolution of finding stuff. And I said that there's 4 levels. So of course I made this up. I said that there's 4 levels, and I feel that the lowest form of the evolution of finding stuff is seeing. And the example that I always use, and this is definitely something that you can go and use in your company as well, but the example that I always use is to say that if someone goes on holiday and they're busy packing the vehicle that they use, their car, and they're packing nothing in the car's boot or the trunk, we call it a boot in South Africa, but they're putting everything on the car's roof and they're sticking it down with duct tape, so nothing goes in the car, everything's going on the car's roof. That would be rather crazy, wouldn't it? I mean, why would you not pack your possessions safely in the car where it belongs? Why would you be putting it on the roof? And when you ask people why they do that, they typically tell you, Trace, It's because it's easier to find. If it's right there on the car's roof, I can see it. I know where the things are that I want to find. I don't have to dig in the trunk of the vehicle behind things to find things, all of those things. What they don't realize is if they should get into a hailstorm, insurance is not going to pay out for the damage to the property because it should have been safely inside the car. And then, of course, also very important to remember is that the 0 to 100, the performance of the vehicle is being affected. It won't be as fast as it's supposed to be because of wind resistance. Now, everyone thinks that's a crazy example. I mean, why would anyone ever do that? But a very good example of that is saving stuff on our desktops. So, of course, I'm talking about Windows environments. I'm not referring to Mac environments now. But in Windows environments, our users are still saving everything on their desktops. And sometimes they have folders with thousands of files in on their desktops. And they don't realize that, firstly, this is the most dangerous place to save documents. Secondly, it slows their machines down. And thirdly, it also slows them down because they're navigating to information. They're not searching for information. They're putting everything there where they can see it. So for me, the lowest form of the evolution of finding stuff is definitely seen, is that we put things down where we can see it because we're scared we can't find it. So the second level would be navigating to things. Now, an example of that, and I'm going to use marketing as an example. So marketing would have a folder on the file share. And when they go to that folder in the file share, they'll double click on that folder and then more folders opens up. And then there's a folder for reports and they'll double click on reports and then more folders are folded and opens up. And then they'll double click on 2019. And then they'll double click on April. And then they'll double click on draft reports. And then they'll double click on printed draft reports or signed off draft reports. And the way that we double click through folders is a typical example of navigating to content. So we're building physical paths to content because we don't trust to search for content and we're scared that we can't find it again. So that's navigating to content. Another example would be is if someone had to ask me now, and I've been a trainer for many years, you'd think I'd know it, but I don't. If someone had to ask me now, Trace, what printers are installed on your machine? I actually don't know how to navigate to it, to be quite honest. I can't remember how to get there anymore. It used to be the start button and maybe, I don't know, my computer and then control panel and then printers or something. I actually don't know anymore because with every OS that comes out, these things gets changed and names gets changed. So I use the Windows button, of course, to search. But navigating to specific items is also to settings on your machine is also a way of navigating. Another example would be all the gazillions of shortcuts we have on our desktops to Excel and PowerPoint and Outlook and all the apps that you use, because we think if we can't find that icon, then we can't find the program. How many times do people log calls because the Excel's disappeared off their machine? Someone's deleted Excel, but actually it was only the shortcut that disappeared off their machine. So we need to help users to stop navigating to content, because if I think of the volume of data we're working with, it's definitely tenfold, if not much more, over the last couple of years. Our teams has been halved. We've got half the people to do the work with. The workload is absolutely much, much more. So we cannot navigate to content anymore. We have to teach our users to start searching. So if I think of search, of course, the Windows button on my keyboard is a perfect example. I use that Windows button to navigate to my File Explorer. I use the Windows button to navigate to search for programs that I want to open, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, doesn't matter. I use the Windows button to search for settings on my machine as well. And I also use the Windows button to search for files. I trust my machine to be my extension or to be my personal assistant, because these little robots that we use every day are brilliant at indexing and search. We don't have to remember those things anymore. So again, I would definitely love to see that we're teaching our users to search more and navigate less. Another good example for search would be using pluses and minuses as Boolean operators to refine search results. So if I go to Google or I go to Bing and I search, for example, Ducati Monster, I'll get about 40 million results. If I go Ducati Monster space minus Wikipedia space plus PDF space plus 2019, I'll get one result. So we should be showing our users this, the same as in SharePoint. I mean, those pluses and minuses also works in SharePoint. We should be empowering our users to use these shortcuts and tips and tricks to help them get through their day faster and to be more efficient and more effective. Now, an example of discovery, of course, is the way that technology works these days. I mean, that's where things get pushed at us that we didn't even ask for. We know that this already happens in advertising and social media, But if I just think Office Graph and Delve, and how in Microsoft 365 these days, it'll give you suggestions. Hey, there's a team that you're working with. Here's a document that you've worked with Peter, and that's all discovery. The sad thing is that we're installing and we're rolling out software in companies that already sits in discovery, but our users are still stuck between see and navigate. So we have to update those people. I don't care how purple or how teal or how blue an app is. It doesn't get people to evolve. We have to evolve them by giving them the skills, and then the software and the applications and the apps and services will help them be better at what they are every day, and it'll help them be faster and more effective and more efficient. I hope that example made you think a little bit different about the things that you are doing in your company and the things that your users are struggling with. If you are in an IT role or a support role or even a training role, please remember that the most difficult thing as a trainer or supporter is to remember that you've already forgotten what they still have to learn. It's so easy to think that everyone knows everything, but I can promise you none of us was born with all of that skill. We learned it from either people in the community or from courses or that we've done, or videos we've watched, or blogs that we've read. So please remember that we have to pass on the knowledge to our users so that they can upskill as well. Now, the next thing that I want to touch on is to learn new things, we first must unlearn old habits. Now, I'm definitely not shy to say that I'm 44 years old, so I'm definitely not seen as a millennial anymore. But I want to remind you of something. Something that I hear a lot at conferences that people come to me is that they would say, Trace, so the young people don't resist technology that much, you know. Maybe we should get rid of the older people working in our companies. Of course, that makes me very sad. But and people will also say that they don't have adoption issues, or people will even say to me, if the software was just more intuitive, then people will use the technology. So something I want you to understand is that the more technology and apps and services someone has worked with, the more muscle memory they have with that technology. So, for example, I've worked with DOS, I've worked with Lotus, I've worked with all the old versions of Office. I don't know how many there was already. I've worked with, I don't know, XP, Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. So the difference is even though I know so many apps and services and applications and software platforms, is that every time that an update comes out, I struggle to learn the new update because my brain keeps on going back to the previous way that I did things. An example would be as to when Office 2007 got rolled out. So before that, we had drop-down menus, right? So file, edit, view, print, and then suddenly there was a ribbon. And I remember I was involved in a company when the ribbon was brought out, and it nearly brought that company to its knees because suddenly users couldn't find the print button. And we couldn't understand, how is this possible? It should be intuitive, but it wasn't, because the muscle memory people had with the system was that there was a file drop-down menu, and that's where they would find certain things. So please have empathy and patience with people that has more memory, more muscle memory with older systems, because they do take longer to learn new systems. And it's not that they're resisting, it's just that it takes longer, and sometimes we have to unlearn some of those old ways of doing things before we can actually move on and start with using new ways of doing things. So please have some empathy, because older folks like me, we might struggle to learn new things, but I can promise you we come with so much pros, and we have a lot of business experience and crazy things we've done that adds value to the pot. So don't just discard us because we tend to seem like we resist change. Then, of course, I would like to take a look as well at how Office 365 supports and grows the digital literacy skills. I just want to quickly have a look and see if I can see any of the questions and answers. Shane, if you can just come up for me, I just want to see. So in my portal, I can see the chats, but I'm not seeing my Q&As in this little window of mine.
Okay. Well, I'm keeping an eye on it, and there's no questions in yet, Tracy. So if there's any that pop in, I'll interject.
Okay, perfect. I'm definitely an oversharer of people, so I don't always have lots of questions because I think I share quite a lot of information. So, but you're welcome. So just chat and pop in at any time, Shane, if there is any questions.
Super.
So Office 365, how this supports and grows digital literacy skills. The first thing I do want to talk about is our companies are currently rolling out Microsoft or Office 365 in the companies. And if you've been guilty of it, I please want you to go back and just think about whether it is that you are going to get success with it and what the mistakes might be according to it. So I've seen a lot of companies send an email out to all the users with a link to the office.com portal, and they would say, hi there. So we've gone onto Office 365. Here's a link that goes to the portal. Sign in to find all your things. Here's a video that you can watch from Microsoft, and here's a video from the CEO on stream. Have a nice day. And then they don't understand why they don't get adoption on the technology. Remember that there's a lot of us coming from very old environments. We're not used to cloud technologies. We're not going to go and scratch around and teach ourselves things because we haven't learned to be self-learners. That top 5% that I showed you in the stats earlier on, those are self-learners. Those are people that are curious and that figure things out. The rest of us, not so much. We've also come from older environments where we were told not to scratch around. Don't go to the browser. Don't go Google around things. What did you do and what did you break now? Wait or don't do things. Rather log a call with IT support. So there's a lot of culture changes that we have to go through before people will become self-learners and they'll start figuring things out on their own. So please don't roll out Office 365 with an email and a pretty video from the CEO, because I do not think that you'll get great adoption with that. So something that I've helped companies develop is a kind of a campaign or strategy with rolling out Office 365. Now, we all know, and I'm not going to go into a major change management or ADCAR or PROSCI or ProSci like kind of discussion now, but we all know that if we don't communicate and we don't create a need, people will not adopt new technology. So I went and found, and I didn't design this methodology, but I found the 8 pillars of digital literacy, and I decided that it so resonated with me that I wanted to use it for my Microsoft 365 roadmaps and rollouts. And it's divided up in critical thinking, e-safety, cultural and social understanding, collaboration, curation and information, being a proficient communicator, creativity, and practical and functional skills. These are skills, and I know that in the past they were called soft skills, but I've absolutely decided to rebrand it to power skills. These are power skills that everyone in your company should have. And the most amazing thing is that if you make people aware of this and you help them develop these skills, you'll see that Microsoft 365 and Office 365 also supports this. So I am going to just go in and I'm going to scan through some of these. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. So critical thinking and evaluation, of course, I can use Planner or Power BI. I can use forms to gather information, all the amazing stuff that's in Excel these days and Power Apps. So to help people get the right data to make the right decisions, and that's definitely a skill that it's a power skill that people can have, and Office 365 is perfect. It's applying the tools to be able to do that. The next one that I'll be looking at is e-safety. So e-safety, again, of course, I think there's a lot of people out there that doesn't know what e-safety means or how scary the world is out there. I mean, we've all got smartphones and smart TVs now. We don't even know that there's a big brother out there. So people get mad because password resets must happen and they don't understand how sharing works on OneDrive. But if we do campaigns around e-safety to help people be better and safer in the world that we work in, and that applies to home life and work life, then it also is a great opportunity to show them how OneDrive allows us to share with passwords or with specific emails. The same, of course, as with Sway and Stream and all the passwords that's in SharePoint and the permissions. So again, Office 365 is brilliant at supporting these things. So e-safety is definitely addressed in that. The next one that I'll take a look at is cultural and social understanding. So cultural and social understanding in this day, in this life of ours, is more important than ever. If I think diversity and tech and inclusion and making sure that we are sensitive to people that are different, because we're not supposed to be the same. So please remember that when people are different, we also perceive things as different. And again, Office 365, Microsoft is brilliant at allowing us to have tools, not just for accessibility for people with disabilities, but also to help us understand and know more about each other. Of course, this presentation is all the way from last year already, so there's been a lot of updates in Teams as well. But if I just remember back in Skype for Business, we used to have the translation tool. So I can have a conversation with someone in a different language and it translates it. There's a lot of translation tools already available in Office. And of course, again, as I said, Microsoft is brilliant at bringing these things in for us and helping us to address those things. Collaboration, of course, has always been a big buzzword, and it definitely isn't just SharePoint anymore, by the way. For years and years, Outlook has been our collaboration tool, but now with Teams and Yammer, of course, and using SharePoint and the way we can do co-authoring and stream with videos. There's an unbelievable amount of tools and apps and services that helps us to collaborate better. Sharing content is definitely not collaboration, but bringing people together to be more effective and to achieve great results is collaboration. So again, Microsoft is a winner chicken dinner when it comes to collaboration. So then also curation of content. If I just think Sway, brilliant tool. PowerPoint, of course, as well, all the things that's been launched the last while. And then even in SharePoint, if I think of the news pages and the beautiful sites, the communication sites that you can build now with the beautiful web parts to share information and to put information together. And then, of course, co-authoring just really helps us with those things as well. So I'm going to scan through quickly so we don't run out of time. And as I said, this will be shared afterwards. Being a proficient communicator, again, we did this via Outlook for many, many years, but it's much, much bigger than just Outlook now. Being a proficient communicator is being able to get your point across and also making sure that people understand what it is that you're saying and allowing for feedback. So again, it's a very necessary power skill that people need to have, and PowerPoint is brilliant. PowerPoint, of course, PowerPoint is, but Microsoft is brilliant at supplying us the tools for that. Creativity. Now, I'm a very creative person, okay, and I know that that's strange to hear someone say that, because when I ask people if they think they're creative, most people normally tell me that they don't think they are. And I can promise you that everyone's got a creative flair. You just don't know it. I just spend a couple of minutes with someone showing them the amazing tools that's available to help them be more creative. And I'm definitely going to show you some of that in the demo once we're at the end of the presentation. But there is some incredible tools out there to help people be more creative. So we'll just go on to the next ones. And I think we're on to practical and functional skills. All of the Microsoft 365 apps helps us to be more practical. Do not forget the importance of Microsoft Office, please. Just because people have been using it for years doesn't mean they've been using it right. People have not been very efficient at using Office, and they kind of only use the things that they know, and there's so much more to it. So even the older versions of Office have amazing features in it that can be used by people if they just knew how. So do not disregard the power of Microsoft Office on its own. But of course, all of these tools together helps us to be more practical and to help us build functional skills. So that's the 8 pillars that I normally roll out in companies to kind of build an awareness campaign. So we start with these campaigns before we launch Office 365, and we say, guys, we want to help the company and we want to help our employees to be more digitally literate. And these are the skills that we are going to be looking at. And we'll get to the demo in a moment. These are the skills we are going to be looking at. And of course, this is what they should be. And that then creates a need in your company. So then when you start rolling out Office 365, people will understand where those tools and apps and services slot in. And they'll understand that it actually addresses a need that they have. So I am going to come back to the demo at the end of the presentation. I'm going to move on to the next slide. I am going to just take a moment very quick and just drink some water and calm my chest down. So just give me one moment.
And while Tracy is doing that, if you have any questions for Tracy, feel free to type them into the questions window and we can ask them as we go along.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Shane. I'm actually lasting much better than I thought I was going to be. I get these little cough sessions that turns into asthma sessions, which has been extremely delightful over the last couple of days. Okay, so where and how do we keep up to date with the new features and new releases? I don't know if anyone on this call knows me, but I did a crazy thing over the last 2 years. I think in 2016, I started a challenge where I wrote an article or a blog every day for 365 days about Office 365. And I did it, firstly, as my learning journey to figure out what was an Office 365. I also shared it with people so that I could help them learn with me. But I was so surprised at the end of it that I didn't run out of things to say. I couldn't believe that I finished it, though. I cannot believe that I actually achieved that. So I spent about 4 to 5 hours a day figuring out what the new features were, writing an article about it and sharing it. So I finished that, I think, at the beginning of 2017, and I think in Feb or March. And then, of course, Microsoft launched Microsoft 365, and I had a crazy idea to do it again, and I actually did it again. So I wrote another 365 blogs, and I eventually went over to video because I fell behind a bit and I wanted to finish my challenge. So my last about 200 blogs was actually videos, and I still didn't run out of things to say. So that's how incredible it is. There's just so many features in Office 365, and I definitely don't expect anyone to do that every day because it is a little bit crazy. But there is a lot of features, and it is important to make sure that you have the right people in your company who stays up to date with the different products and apps and features, and make sure that they research and they know that's what's happening every day. We have moved very far past the point of where when you've gone for a course, you're up to date, because by next Monday, there'll be new features that's released. So please make sure that it's also addressed in the KPIs of the people that might be product specialists in your company, that they need to stay up to date every day. Something I do is every morning to take about 10 or 15 minutes before I open Teams and before I open Outlook is I just go to Twitter and I quickly scan through the latest releases or feature updates or blogs from the product groups. So I follow all the product groups on Twitter. Of course, you can follow and go to Tech Community as well, and I'll share some of those resources with you in a little bit. So for me, the most important places where I keep up to date on a daily basis. If you leave it too long, if you try and do this once a month, I can promise you it'll be like taking a sip from a fire hose. So it's not going to work that way. But the important thing to stay up to date is to rather take it in small bite sizes and try and deal with it as it comes in there. So the one website that I go to all the time is what's new in Office 365. And that gives me the latest updates in Microsoft Office. So Excel, Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, all of those. And it also gives it for you across different OSs. So Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, etc. The next one that I take a look at, and that's been changed now to Microsoft 365 Roadmap. This is a bit more technical, so this is where you can go and look at what's in development, what are they planning, what's just gotten released. You definitely have to keep your eye on that as well. It's always got resources that tells you more about the specific feature that's been released. So that's for the full Office 365 apps and services. So that would include Teams, OneDrive, and all of those things like Stream, etc. Then, of course, the Microsoft Tech Community is an incredible forum community to belong to. There's a lot of people in that community that helps and answers questions. You can ask, you can answer as well. There's just a great sense of a community and people helping each other. Then also Office 365 Training Center, of course, new training resources and training centers got released in the last couple of weeks. So I would definitely go and take a look at the new Microsoft, and I can't quite remember now what the latest one is called. So the Microsoft Learning Center, something similar to that got launched very recently in the last week. And then of course as well, Microsoft User Voice. Please remember to always be part of the solution. Don't just be part of the problem. So don't just be someone who complains about things. Go and log a call, or go log a new feature request, because we actually have the ability to change the future that we're going to be using, the technology that we're going to use. If enough people vote for the user voice request that you've put in, Microsoft will definitely look at it to develop it. So please go to Microsoft User Voice as well. You'll see there on the right-hand side, I've got a bright and colorful page up there. And Ubuntu is an African word that means I am who I am because of who we all are. I think it's very important to remember that community is by far one of the most important things for me when it comes to Microsoft. If I didn't have the community, I don't think I would have survived. But the people that I surround myself with and that I follow on social media are always available to help me. And I try and be that for people as well. I think that's a very important purpose for me in my life, is to be there to people as well and to help them. There's always someone awake who's prepared to help us. I mean, sometimes I'll be building a Microsoft Flow and it just doesn't want to work. And I don't understand if it's me or has something gone wrong and what's the problem. And I'll just go on Twitter and say, hey guys, please, just does anyone experience the same thing? And I promise you within minutes, someone gets back to you. Never, ever disregard the importance and the impact that community has. We're all only as good as the people that we surround ourselves with. So don't feel that you're alone. Don't feel that you have to do this on your own. There's a lot of people out there doing this at the same time as you, and people that are so prepared to share their learnings and to help people out, because that's what we do and that's what community does. Then, of course, if I think of the Twitter accounts, I definitely can't list everyone that I know. I did list myself there as well, but there's some of the product groups that I follow. You can definitely take a look out for some of the product groups on Twitter. I'm sure that there's some that's been added as well. These are the guys that I follow on Twitter specifically, but of course, there's groups on Facebook, as well that I'm part of. And not so much on LinkedIn. I don't think I do a lot of learning and support on LinkedIn, but definitely Facebook and Twitter is my go-to place for helping people, but also getting help, which is incredible. Then, of course, I've written a gazillion amount of blogs, so you're always welcome to go to my blog and take a look and say, hey, maybe Tracy wrote something about this, so you're welcome to go there. It's just my name and my surname.com. So you'll find me out there as well. The next slide I do want to show you is actually outdated already since the last time that I've done this presentation at ESPC. So the T-bot doesn't exist anymore, but what's important if you look at the screen is the command box at the top. In the command box in Teams, you can just type /help and it'll bring back all the help files. So that's very, very important in Teams now. So the T-bot itself doesn't show separately anymore, but you can actually use the command box at the top. I actually delivered a session in Dubai last week at Microsoft Ignite Dubai on creating bots for your teams, an FAQ bot, which is brilliant. It's such a cool thing to do. So using Azure and Microsoft Teams. So that's also something you can do is to help people, is to maybe build an FAQ or a Q&A and use this Q&A maker to build a little bot for your teams. But there we go. Use the command box right at the top. You can go /help and it'll bring back any help files. And then also please remember that most of the Office apps now already has the help tab in. So you'll see that there's help, and that's in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, which means you can get training videos right there in Excel or Word or PowerPoint. You can reach out to the community. You can go to the blog site. You can log a feature request. So check out for the help tab in the latest Office as well. Which helps people become self-learners. Now remember, if you don't tell people about this, they just won't know it. Don't expect people to figure it out on their own. Please don't. We have to give them a little bit of TLC to make sure that they start becoming self-learners and lifelong learners. And this has got nothing to do with technology, but of course I am going to say it, is that a lot of the resistance that we have and a lot of the adoption problems we have, it's got nothing to do with technology and everything to do with self-esteem. We're all just a little bit afraid of looking stupid. Okay, so if you're not afraid to say that, I'm not. Okay, we're all afraid to look stupid. We're afraid to ask questions because we think, man, that person's going to think, how stupid is this chick that she doesn't know where to find that? Or we're scared to log calls because in the past when we've logged calls with IT, they made us feel a little bit stupid, you know. So please understand that we have to put a little bit of effort into make people understand that they can help themselves and that the tools is there and that it's okay to search for how to solve problems. And that for us to be technology users these days, we have to be power users and we have to become self and lifelong learners. I don't expect all of your users to go to Twitter every day and consume these things, but I definitely expect your product or specialists to actually do that. And I'll show you that in a bit on how to keep those guys up to date. Then, of course, if I think how IT and end user and training roles should change. So the first thing is, it's not scalable to fix people's problems, okay? If I log a call with IT and Excel's missing on my machine because I've accidentally deleted the shortcut on my desktop, and IT then logs into my machine and puts the shortcut back, they're doing exactly what they're told to do, so that's part of their KPIs or their performance appraisals, and it says that they have to fix problems, but that is not scalable. So the first thing in that example that someone should do is to say, hey, Trace, I don't want using shortcuts anymore. I mean, that's like so old. We don't use shortcuts anymore. We search. And I'm going to say, what do you mean we search? And this person's going to say to me, Trace, I want you to click that Windows button on your keyboard and I want you to type Excel. Do you see Excel? Perfect. Enter on it and open it. Don't use shortcuts anymore. Now that's scalable, people. We have to help people help themselves. That's scalable. Yes, we want to change everything into bots that asks the questions, but we're not quite there yet. We have to first change that culture where people can start helping themselves. And it doesn't mean that the people on your IT help desk necessarily are people, and that's okay. We all have different personalities. They might be more technical, so why don't you move those people into product specialist roles like Power Apps and Flow and Stream and Power BI and things like that, where they can really be happy and do a great job. And why don't you change your first line support into junior trainers or something? It's got to be people that want to help people. We have to help people help themselves because then we can change that culture as well. It's the best training location is through our IT support help desk. And that's the same as with training. We need to stop training people normal technical training. Because when we train someone to click on the right and then click on the second drop down, and then that's where you'll get the settings. Whenever a feature is updated, we'll have to retrain people. We have to train people to think more logical. We have to train people to search when something doesn't make sense, or to just take a deep breath and look at the screen and see where things are. In the past, and that's what was wrong with my training, I used to train step by step how things work. And that means people can't troubleshoot and they can't think for themselves. We cannot do textbook training anymore, people. We have to help people, give them the basics, give them enough help to have a better self-esteem so they can figure things out on their own, give them an idea of where things are and how the basics work, but help them teach themselves the rest further. Do not teach them the A to Z, because that's only valid until tomorrow when a new feature gets rolled out. So that's definitely big changes that needs to come into the companies. The next thing I want to talk about is just your mentorship roles. So that's also something that I help companies with, is to help build those programs in the companies. You cannot roll out Office 365 if you don't have good mentorship pyramid schemes in place, if I can call it that. You have to have these internal support structures in place. You might be under the impression that you're going to save a lot of money with Office 365 because your cost of ownership and IT is going to come down. But you have to understand that that responsibility is going to move into business. Those product owners and product specialists that used to just sit in IT will move into business. And we have to make sure that these people are empowered. So if I look at this little pyramid scheme of mine of mentorship, I would need a product specialist for every product in the company. Now, depending on how big your company is, it might be that it's only 1 or 2 people. In big companies, you might have a product specialist just for PowerPoint, because believe me, PowerPoint's a business critical app, and so is Outlook, and so is Excel. So I need to find someone who can take care of each product, and they're the people that keeps their eye on Twitter every day and watches the webinars and reads the blogs and goes to conferences. They need to be so hungry for the latest features and the things that's happened, so that they absolutely clued up with what's happening so they can help the company out. So find those product specialists. Again, a product specialist might be a grouping of apps and services. So you might have a creative product specialist, which takes care of PowerPoint, Stream, and Sway as an example. So depending on how big your company is, but find someone and make sure that they have a mandate that says that this is their job now. They have authority to say that this is what they're supposed to do every day, and that they know that a percentage of their job responsibility is to also stay up to date, to research, to go read blogs, to check out what's happening on Twitter, to interact with Microsoft on the tech community, to watch the roadmaps, etc. So those product specialists are unbelievably important in your company. You cannot sit back and think everything's going to just run on its own, because I can promise you it will not. Then those product specialists could interact with a weekly power user forum. So power user would be one level down. Those are people who uses the technology very well, but it's not their responsibility to know exactly everything about the technology. So maybe once a week, you can meet up with a power user forum and say, hey guys, these are the latest releases that came out this week. Here's a feature that's giving us some hassles, but we're sorting it out. Because remember, we're using Agile project management, Agile development. Things are being pushed out that's not always fully tested and perfect, okay? And you have to understand that. Things sometimes do go wrong and doesn't work well, and it gets updated or fixed for the next one. But I'd rather have new features and new updates every day and now and then a snag than wait for a new feature release every 3 years. I'm way too impatient for that. So take the pros and cons together, but make sure that the people know what's being released and updated. So they could interact with your power user forum, which is maybe once a week. They could then in return interact with the power users, which might be on department or division level. You might have someone earmarked, and that's someone who's like kind of like really gelled with it and that's excited about using, let's say, for example, Power BI or using Flow or something. And they can then make sure that these people are updated, like filter the communication down. Then those power users, again, can interact with end users. You should end up with a lot of less end users in your company, by the way. I really want to see companies have about 80% power users and maybe 20% end users. Power users are people that can use Sway and Forms and Flow, for example. Power Apps, a little bit tricky, okay? Not everyone's going to use that. It's a little bit more technical. Building apps on SharePoint, definitely more technical. But when I consider a power user someone who really is efficient and effective using the tools that they use, I want the bigger group of your company to be power users. So end users might just be at a certain level, people that don't interact that much with the products, or maybe it's first-line workers or people don't really work with Office and the apps and services that much. And then, of course, you can wrap it up with a monthly newsletter that goes out. So use a SharePoint news page that just goes out and lists the feature updates. that was launched that month in Microsoft 365, and people can scan through that to make sure. But that's building a good mentorship program in your company and making sure that people are up to date, that they stay up to date, that we create a culture of self-learning and curiosity and creativity, and help build those digital literacy skills as well to help these people out. We've got a couple of minutes left, and I just want to go and I'll run through a couple. I just want to see if I can change the screens that I am sharing. So I am going to just drop my screen. So if my screen goes off right now, don't be stressed about it, because I want to go back into Office. So I'm going to just stop presenting, and I want to go over to Office and bring Office up on here for a moment. So let me just see that I'm still sharing the right screen. Okay, so I'm confirming I'm still sharing Word. Can you see Word up on my screen at the moment, Shane?
Yeah, I can see that.
Cool. So some of these are things, and like I said, I've only got a couple of minutes, so we're not going to go through too far. And just shout out, Shane, if there's any questions that you wanted me to take a look at quickly. Do you have anything on your side?
We have more comments, but they're fine till the end.
More comments. Okay, cool. Yeah. So we are busy wrapping up. That's cool. So just a cool thing. I mean, something that came out recently, and I've got to be careful now. My voice is a bit strange. So I've got to be very careful by using dictation tool on a screen. But you'll see in Word that there's dictation tool, and I can actually switch it on. It'll type everything that I speak. You have to speak a little bit slower. I definitely speak too fast for it. So believe me, sometimes it even picks up swear words where I can promise you I didn't swear. So dictation tool is an amazing thing that's got brought out in Microsoft in the last while that helps us save a lot of times. Of course, icons also got brought out, and that was already in May 2016, believe it or not. So it's 3 years ago. I mean, that's just crazy. It's very high quality SVG icons that can be edited. The colors can be changed, and they are adding to these on a daily basis as well. So these icons really are incredible to use in your Office apps. Then, of course, research. If you look under the References tab, you'll see that there's Smart Lookup and there's Researcher. If I go to Smart Lookup, I can actually immediately go and search for something right here in Word. And I can say, and you'll see because it's highlighted a word in my document, it actually went and it returned results for me. Of course, it uses Bing in the background, people. And that's why I say Bing's going to become very powerful over the next year, because millions of people are using Office 365 and using Bing in the background without even knowing it. Also, what you can use is Researcher. And that's something I use quite often, is if I go to Researcher, I can actually say that I want to write a new white paper or something on, let's say, digital literacy. So I'm going to search for digital literacy. It's going to return articles that I can use for my white paper, for example. And you'll see, I just want to see if it's bringing back. I'm sure there's been an update to this. This is typical when I actually start using it. Let me just close this quickly first. Hold on. If I go Researcher, I think I closed the wrong screen. So digital literacy. And you'll see it brings back topics. Now I can expand this and say show all the topics. And then I can choose some of them to add it to my document. You'll see that there's a little plus sign on the right-hand side. So I can say, I want to speak to you about digital literacy, information, definitely. How about computer literacy? And I think digital writing and research is also a good one. You'll see that it's adding it to my document as an index already. So if I had to go and insert a table of contents now, it's actually already inserted it, which is pretty cool. If I go to any of those articles, if I click on digital literacy, for example, I can actually go read this article. And if I see a paragraph that I'd like to use, I can actually select it and see there that Word allows me to say add and cite it. Now that's incredible. You see it's added it to my document, and it's also added it to the bibliography by default. That's one of the most unbelievable additions and the features that they've brought into Office in the last couple of years. So for anyone who's ever built a bibliography, I think the only thing that hurts more than building a bibliography is sticking a pen in your right eye. So that's definitely going to help you quite a lot. So a lot of cool tools there. And then also, of course, and I just want to confirm, I'm going to just bring this across. So Shane, just please confirm for me again that you can see Excel before I can continue.
Yeah, I can see Excel.
Cool. So in Excel, a lot of cool things also that's got been brought out in the last while. One of them, of course, just an example I want to give you is like 3D maps. Excel will recognize the data that you work with based on the titles and the block of data that you work with, and it can build a world map for you or a 3D map for you. So the maps that they've brought out in Excel is really incredible. There's lots of other cool ones, of course, but you'll see that there's a lot of cool maps that you can bring out. Of course, 3D models have been brought out, icons have been brought out. Inserting online pictures right here in these documents has also been brought out. So also a very, very cool one. Then the last one that I do want to show, and we are busy getting to the closer. I don't know who's ever worked with design ideas in PowerPoint. And Shane, just confirm as soon as you can see my PowerPoint slide for me, please.
Yeah, I can see your PowerPoint.
Everything's going so well, people. Even my chest is like behaving. I'm like, what is this? I should go play the lotto after this because it's definitely a good day. So design ideas in PowerPoint also got released somewhere. I don't want to lie to you. I think about it in the last 2 years, and it's one of my favorite things. If you say to me that you're not creative, then I'm saying to you that you just don't know you're creative yet. So I'm going to just take some images from my computer and drag it onto PowerPoint quickly. And I think you can drag up to 6 or 7 at the moment. It's been changed. But I'm going to just drag some images up onto my PowerPoint. If the images are too big, by the way, it might not work. It will actually tell you that the images are too big or that it can't run the design ideas now. It definitely needs data to do this. You need to be on Wi-Fi, guys, to do this. If it doesn't pop up on the right, it might be a little bit slow. So if I go to design, let's see if it does work. I'm hoping it does work. So if I click on design ideas there under design, please let it work. And there we go. How amazing is that? Have you ever seen this, Shane?
I've seen design ideas, yeah, but I haven't seen it do. I didn't know you could bring in custom pictures and it will sort of pop into.
How epic is that? So now it's the cat's out the bag. It's not me that's that cool when it comes to images. It's actually Microsoft. So design ideas is an incredible tool that got brought out in the last while. Morph is another thing. It's a transition that you can use. Now, you might have seen in the presentation that I gave, between every slide, the characters and the objects like moves between each other. And that's called Morph. So I'm not going to spend some time on that now, but go and look at Morph, incredible transitioning tool to use. And then, of course, as well, let's take a look at Design Ideas Morph. Recording's also been in PowerPoint for quite some time. So if it doesn't show there, so there's recording, it means I can make videos right here in PowerPoint. I think that replaced, I think it was called Mix in the previous PowerPoint in a while back, and that's replaced Mix. If they're recording, and look at this, I mean, how epic is that, people? If you don't love Microsoft, I should actually put the Stream logo on my arm as well, seeing as I've got the rest of the Office logos on there. I should put Stream up there because you can publish straight to Stream from here now as well. If it doesn't show your recording, doesn't show you can go to File and you can go to Options. And in your Options, under Customize Ribbon, you will see that there's a recording tab there. That's got to be ticked. If that's not ticked, it won't show there. So sometimes I've seen with some users that the recording tab doesn't show. But you can very easily then start a screen recording. And then once you're done, you can right-click and save the video. And then I think the last thing that I wanted to show, Morph I did speak about. So Morph is a new transition that you can use. And Morph actually just takes objects and text and morphs them into each other. And that kind of wraps up my presentation. That's why I went to the demo last. We've got about 3 minutes left. So if there's anything from your side, Shane, please, and I don't mind going over, so but please shout out and get involved.
Sure, we've got some great comments here. It's one is, I love the infographic containing all the logos. Could you share one with the names about the names of the tools with the logo? So that's fair enough.
The names with the tools with the logo. So I can do that. I just got to make a note right here in my PowerPoint so I don't forget. So share on Twitter. I'm going to use the ESPC19 hashtag.
Sure.
Okay. And I'll share, I did one recently. It doesn't have the new logos in, people, but I've got all the logos with the names of the apps. So share apps and logos. So if that's okay with you, I'll share it afterwards, Shane.
Brilliant. I became a big fan of you after going through the 365 blogs about SharePoint. You are on my bookmark, so that's a raving fan there.
Thank you very much.
Interesting question here. Some people are extremely skilled in Excel and they have built complete systems. Do you think from an organizational perspective, is this helping or hurting the business?
So what I reckon they're saying is that the people have managed to build, and I'm going to call it business critical apps in Excel, okay? We all did that for years. So if that's what you mean by it, I don't think it hurts the org at all. So from a consultant point of view, of course, the first thing we want to do, and from a developer point of view, is they say is when there's a a hammer and a nail, you got to hit it, right? So everyone would immediately jump in and say, no, this has got to be replaced by Flow and Power Apps, and it's got to be replaced by Power BI. And what I want you to do is to just take a slow step forward. Make sure that we never replace processes that hurts the business more when we replace it, because we sometimes think we know better and we don't. So if people are doing creative, crazy things in Excel, take it one step at a time. Maybe get the Excel document in Teams or SharePoint first if they have it on their local machines. Then the next thing is start helping them with doing data connections or decent graphs or things in Excel. So upgrade these with little iterations instead of trying to replace those things completely, because Excel is definitely one of your biggest business critical apps. So if that's what you meant by that question, I hope that answered.
Sure. Okay, brilliant. And that's it from my side, Tracy.
Cool. So I think from my side, I want to say thank you to everyone that was on the call. I had a lot of fun as always. Thank you to ESPC for allowing me the opportunity to rerun my session I had at ESPC. It was a lot of fun. And thank you to my chest for behaving and for me not getting an asthma attack. I'm very happy about that. And I hope that everyone has an incredible day. And I hope that everyone's booked their tickets for ESPC already in Prague, because it's a fantastic conference and it's really an amazing conference, amazing organizers to go through. And thanks a lot. I really hope that it helps a lot. I'll go and share that little infographic afterwards on Twitter. And if there's any questions, please use the ESPC19 hashtag and just I'm at Tracy VDS afterwards as well. You're welcome to reach out.
Super. And on behalf of the ESPC community, thank you, Tracy, for taking the time today to complete this webinar. We really appreciate it.
You are so, so very welcome. It's all worth it.
Great. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Shane.
Okay, everybody, please see sharepointeurope.com/register- for webinars for further details on all upcoming webinars, or visit our resource center for all previous webinars. As Trace said, don't forget to check out our super early bird offer for ESPC 19. Save €350 per ticket, and this offer ends on May 10th. Thank you all for joining us today, and again, thank you to Tracy van der Schef. Take care and goodbye.